Catholics and Christians. Scratch that. I gotta do that over. Catholics are Christians. Anyways, we finally have a new pope. And I said finally, like I was counting down the days for Pope Francis to die. And I wasn't. But let's be honest. It was time. He was really old. Now, what's wild to me, though, is that Pope Francis passed away on Easter Monday, right after squashing his beef with Vice President of the United States. Yeah, they had Twitter beef, or X-beef, whatever Elon wants to call it these days. Tell me, though, do you really think that this is what God had in mind when he said, "Go forth and make disciples"?
That's right. That is right.
Pretty sure he wasn't picturing the Pope and the Vice President of the United States beefing on Twitter like it's a 1995 Source Awards.
Wait. The East Coast don't love Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg? The East Coast ain't got no love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row?
Since every single Catholic online apparently needs to make a video on their thoughts about the new Pope, I might as well follow the trend. Late, of course. I'm always late. It must be the black in me. Stereotyping, it's joke, relax. Meine Freunde, seid ihr bereit? Wir werden ein bisschen Spaß haben heute. Also, los geht's.
Here's to show.
I was initially going to drop out I hated to break it to you episode, but this was a subject that I really wanted to take my time on. I had to do my research first, gather my thoughts, and then spit my unsolicited opinion out. So we got a new pope, and not just any pope, an Augustinian. Not just an Augustinian, an American Augustinian. What does that mean? Look it up. I can't spoon feed you on everything, so I gotta keep this video kind of short. My videos have been way too long recently, and I can tell the viewership is declining, but maybe it's just my content. But what everyone really wants to know is, do I think he is progressive or conservative? Should you be scared or should you be happy? Now, I'm gonna be real with y'all. Theology wasn't and isn't my strength. I was a full-blown atheist for nearly 30 years after my first communion. That's right, I'm a cradle Catholic. Baptized, got the traditional Catholic mistreatment from back in the day, and then I dipped out for nearly 3 decades. Why? Because it's hard to believe in God when people within the church abuse you. And then when you get older and you start doing a certain job for the government that just straight up is evil, you start questioning whether or not God even exists. But if evil exists, that means that good must exist, and God is good, right? So we now have a pope. Pope Leo XIV, formerly known as Cardinal Robert Prevost. And let me tell you, I didn't see this one coming at all. I had no idea who this guy even was. First off, he's American. That alone shocked me. In the current climate, I never thought we'd see an American pope, nor did I really want one. But here we are, stuck with an American pope. And part of me hoped that maybe this could be something that unites us. Spoiler alert. It didn't. The internet did what the internet does best. It turned it into a culture war thing. Now, if you follow the papal gossip, yes, that's actually a thing. You probably heard the usual names. Liberals were pulling for Cardinal Tagle, a progressive Filipino cardinal, and conservatives were hyped over Cardinal Sarah. Some even thought he would have been the first African pope. Message, he wouldn't have been. Shocker, right? Go down a path of Catholic history and tell me you were not misinformed quite a bit. Like, Catholicism is a white man's religion. Maybe now, maybe it just was colonized like yoga.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have problems!
But Cardinal Sarah was blunt, traditional, big on Latin Mass, not big on ecumenical hugs, and he was very, very clear about the church teaching on sexuality. In Africa, they don't play that crap.
You were born a man with a penis.
Yes, that's right.
Okay? And with ananas.
Yes,
the
I believe
anus
so.
was for defecation, and the penis was for urination.
Okay, yeah, we've been through
of course,
which made some folks nervous, especially the fact that everyone thought that maybe if he got in, he would have excommunicated nearly half of the German priests. I know. Germans. They always bringing shame to us. But honestly, back in the day, he would have just been considered a moderate. Then there was Cardinal Pizzabella. Yes, Cardinal Pizza is what some people called him. I don't know if that's true, but that's definitely what I called him. He had more of a broad appeal and seemed like a pretty safe bet. And then there was also Cardinal Parolin, who I really thought would have gotten it. But some controversy seemed to pop up a few days before the conclave, like politics, and that seemed to seal the deal. So when they announced Robert Prevost, I said, who? This man was barely on the radar. I don't even think I ever even heard his name before. Yet he had the support and love and trust from the church, especially from the community that he served. So I guess that says something. And I started digging into his background and I found some complicated stuff here. First and foremost, his name showed up in reports connected to clergy abuse scandal from the 2000s. Yeah, I know, this will never leave the Catholic Church. Some claim that he didn't act when these allegations were brought to his attention during his time in Chicago and Peru. Others said that he actually did the right thing and he was the one who reported these abuses. Total whiplash back and forth, so I don't know which is true. The thing is clear, however, not been accused of any sexual abuse or knowingly protecting any of the abusers. My only question is, though, why elect someone with the proximity to all this mess to begin with? So before you rage out hard on me, go ahead and hit that like button. Of course, click that ding-a-ling to get notified every single time I drop a video. I don't know why this sounds super sexual right now, and if it does to you, repent, you heathen! Yes, Catholics can be funny too, just like you secular demons.
Said that you don't like to fly commercial because you don't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. Do you really believe that human beings are demons?
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did. We wrestle not with flesh and blood.
I'm kidding, obviously. I gotta spell this out now because, we live in a world that lost all its ability to understand what a joke is and when someone's being sarcastic or just, goofing off, even if the joke falls flat. Christianity, at its core, is about love and living a holy life. And I honestly love being a Catholic. Ironically, I came back to the church trying to actually debunk it, to pull my wife away from this attraction that she had, this cultish behavior, the scandals, the heretical ways. Instead, it pulled me right back in and brought me home.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
It opened my eyes, and it opened my heart, and I felt like I am a good living example of it. If you follow these basic principles of life, things will, for the most part, work out in your favor. And I'm not just talking about the prosperity gospel type of crap that a lot of you are into.
Blessing, health, prosperity. Come on, blessing.
I don't believe in any of that. I just guess that even though I didn't pay attention during Catholic school, the foundational morals and values stayed with me. And you may think that's corny, but y'all read that stuff all the time in these self-help books. I got a whole... Actually, I think I tossed them all out, to be honest. But all these books, which is just a secular version of the Bible. Do X, Y, and Z, and your life can be amazing. And you can also give back and treat people well, right? However, we've lost our ever-loving minds because somehow working on yourself now isn't cool. Focusing on identity and tribalism is like the new trend.
Everybody says, who does he think he is? I just told you who I thought I was. A god. I just told you. That's who I think I am. What? What the fuck?
And trying to live a righteous way is considered,
Gay!
Yeah. And listen, I'm not here to preach to anybody. I am a very flawed human being. And I try my best every single day to be a better version of myself. But the irony is that so many people are invested into who was going to be the Pope to the point that there was literally 3 genocides going on right now, and people are speaking about who the next Pope was going to be and then who the next Pope is. This should show you how important the Pope apparently still is, and I thought Catholicism lost all its influence. Clearly not. So what's the real issue here? The church, for the most part, is still misunderstood, especially online. And I used to be that guy who used to go out there and throw all these ignorant statements out there like I knew what I was talking about. Until I got informed. And one benefit of being informed is that you begin to see things clearer. The pieces start clicking into place and you recognize all the BS around you. And listen, I'm not telling all of you guys to go ahead and become Catholics or look into the Bible or whatever. It's up to you. It's just hard to do sometimes because really, you have to humble yourself. It's like when you get into the intel world. Before you get in there, you either have 2 outlooks in life, which is either you are extremely patriotic or you think you're extremely oppressed. Then you get into the intel world and your goggles come off and you see the reality of things. Like reality just hits you smack dab in the face.
That's what she said.
And it's not what you always thought it was. Now back to the new Pope. It's 2025 and he's being politicized like crazy. Leftist Catholics were celebrating the minute it was announced. Conservatives were a little panicky. But he seems to be introducing some of the old traditional ways not seen by Pope Francis, such as wearing the vestments. And and using a bit of Latin. And even Pope Francis wasn't ultra progressive like the media tried to portray him as. He just wasn't always clear on his rhetoric, and the media would just run with whatever he said because it was very ambiguous. So now some are calling Pope Leo XIV the anti-Trump Pope, because he tweeted against Trump and J.D. Vance, and he respected Pope Francis. And that somehow makes him the liberal messiah. Y'all really gotta log off the internet and read something, like for real. And I did. I read old articles, Vatican docs, I used the Wayback Machine, I watched a ton of videos on him, and guess what? Not some progressive guy, and he's not some crazy right-wing MAGA-loving pope either. If anything, he's surprisingly traditional in some areas and liberal in others. But we're addicted to outrage, and outrage sells. Drama is in demand, and people are capitalizing on it. But the truth, he seems way more balanced than people think. Since people didn't really know who he was, Cardinal, Prevost, the media just began creating a narrative to tell you who he was. Traditional Catholics got worried he'll lean into some progressive reforms like blessing same-sex marriages, maybe allowing LGBT celebration in church, and I even saw that some were excited and believed that he was going to be pro-choice, which I don't believe any pope has ever been pro-choice. But now I see more conservative creators celebrating him now that the more information is coming out, like this comment that he's made in the past.
Where all these immigrants continue to come. It's a huge problem, and it's a problem worldwide, not only in this country. There's got to be a way both to solve the problem, but also to treat people with respect.
So some got hyped because they heard that he was apparently celebrating the Latin Mass privately. And my thoughts on this is, who cares? Seriously, who cares what other people think the Pope will be like? What do you think? Did you make your own opinion up, or was it created for you? First and foremost, most people who seem to have opinions are not even Catholic, just clout-chasing individuals who have the wrong idea to begin with. Catholicism isn't the same thing as politics. Granted, it turned into a monarchy at one point or another throughout history, and there's been a lot of atrocities, as well as a lot of good. In fact, Western civilization, in many ways that we see it now, was created by the Catholic Church, and after 2,000 years of ups and downs, the Church still remains. You can't even say that with the Protestants who like to crap on Catholics all the time. 1,500 years later, the Reformation happens, and in less than 500 years, they started splitting into different denominations. 7 to be, in fact, I think it's 7 or 8. Calm down, Catholics is not 4,000 denominations. That's such a stupid Catholic argument against Protestants. Nevertheless, the fact that the Catholic Church hasn't collapsed is pretty impressive. Divine, maybe? Because here's what matters. The Pope is a man who is the face of the institution that Christ himself built. He's not at the head of the table, not our God, not Jesus, and is not running a political campaign. And not everything that he says is actually infallible. Essentially guarding the throne, the gospel, the tradition, the way to salvation that has been, for the most part, consistent for nearly 2,000 years. But we are focused on whether he is more liberal or more conservative. You got this tweet that he made that got all the leftist trolls to celebrate. Then you got this video explaining his actual thoughts fully, and now you got conservative trolls trying to own liberals. Then it comes out that he is a registered Republican. Cue the left losing their minds and the smear machine kicking back into gear. It's predictable at this point. Same tired playbook, just a different day. It's like nobody even wants to be creative anymore. It's like Hollywood all over again. But what if Pope Leo XIV sees his role as something bigger than politics and bigger than himself? Like a man who's become a father and suddenly everything shifts. His priorities, his worldview, because now it's just not about him anymore. What if that's how Pope Leo sees the papacy? And what if we should view him with fresh eyes and a fresh slate? Wait to see what he does and what he says. That's how I move in life. I didn't like DeSantis, and I didn't vote for him, but when he won, instead of crying and losing my mind, I sat and I waited to see what he does. And guess what? 80% of what he does and is done in Florida, I've been satisfied with. And Pope Leo XIV wasn't my first choice. In fact, I had no idea who he even was. But here's my rant. If you're a Christian and this matters to you, it means it holds somewhat of a significance to you, right? And if you're an atheist and this bothers you, Why does it bother you if you don't believe in God and believe in the Pope? Don't get me wrong, I get why people have contempt for religion, especially with the Catholic Church. And honestly, a lot of the criticism is on us. We've done a poor job explaining to the secular world how much of the modern Western culture is built on the foundation we barely recognize anymore. Because we've stripped Catholicism from its source and sanitized it, and of course, we have monetized it. Because baby, we live in a capitalistic country. Just think about it. The gospel is basically repackaged into self-help books. This right here, the rosary, the thing that everyone thinks we're praying to Mary with and to, we're not. But this has basically been rebranded as meditation and mindfulness. Confession is now called therapy, and it has charged you a lot of money for it. I mean, it's in the name, right? Therapist, the rapist. Fasting is now marketed as detox or fasting. Holy days is basically transformed into secular holidays. Halloween, Valentine's Day, and all these other days just to sell cards, buy rings. It's a moneymaker. Great for businesses, though. Pilgrimages is now spiritual retreats at luxury resorts. Incense, chants, vestments is now reduced to aesthetic vibes. Monastic silence sold as silent wellness retreats. Tithing and almsgiving turned into branded activism and donation campaigns. Catechesis is now replaced by life coaching and find your truth in TikTok videos. And the list goes on. I ended on this because I saw a lot of this on X. To my LGBT friends, which have pretty much all have abandoned me because of who I voted for, and everyone wrestling with the church teachings. I get it, but Catholicism doesn't revolve around your identity or mine. We all have crosses to bear, gay, straight, rich, poor, everyone. And yeah, same-sex acts are considered a sin. It sucks that that's a cross that you have to bear, and it may feel impossible to control. But so is adultery, so is porn for so many men out there. They're just not willing to talk about it because they're ashamed to admit it. And so is greed, and so is lust. None of us are exempt. We all fall short in one way or another, but we are all still called to live holy lives. And we are all still loved. And that is honestly the essence of Catholicism. I love you, but I don't love your actions. It's not bigotry. That's not hate. That's not refusing to accept you. If anything, people are pushing away from the closest thing that we have to explain our nature, our spirituality, and our physical being. Amen. Sorry, I told you guys I wasn't going to preach. I make fun of difficult discussions, and I try to make light of certain topics. And I love to troll, which used to be called sarcastic humor, but it's 2025 now. Stop putting everything into a political box when it clearly doesn't fit into a political box. And religion is one of those things. It really doesn't. So breathe, take a step back, and don't let Twitter or me be your theology. Go read the gospel. Go down the historical aspect of Catholicism. Read the forefathers' papers. Research. And if you really are interested in learning, I'm going to name a few guys here that you may be interested in. Check out Scott Hahn, Trent Horn, Sips with Sarah, Voice of Reason. I even like Wes Huff. Redeemed Zoomer is a pretty good one. Divine Mercy. Father David Michael Moses, Father Leo Show, that one's pretty good too. Father Schmidt, aka I think it's called Accession Presents. Pints with Aquinas, a lot of people like that one. Bishop Barron, Shameless Popery. And then there's also the anti-Catholic stuff, which I also enjoy. Like Mike Winger, Father Moses, which is a Orthodox priest. The atheist Alex Connor has got some pretty good stuff. Bishop Marmari, which I've done a video on before too. If you're interested, check it out. Actually pretty crazy. He got stabbed live on television. It was crazy. And then my guilty pleasure, Ruslan, who does a great job mixing pop culture and Christianity into an entertainment format. It's a podcast. I actually like it. I listen to it almost every day. So start there, but I would definitely recommend avoiding people like Michael Knowles, George Janko, Russell Brand, Sam Shamoon, and Charlie Kirk. Not because they are not educated on theology. I just personally don't think they are a good resource to get informed properly, or they may immediately turn you off by their arrogance, their rhetoric, and their presentation. But with that being said, I'm honestly excited for Pope Leo XIV. I like the name that he picked too. That means a lot. If you look back in history, that means something. And so far, I'm like what I'm seeing. I like what he is saying, and I believe he will likely be considered a good pope moving forward. During a time where Catholicism apparently is of interest again. I just hope people will eventually come back to the faith and realize that it's not God, it's not the church, it's not religion that messes it up for everyone. It's us, flawed human beings with free will who choose to make really poor decisions in life and who are so arrogant that they believe they know better than anybody else. including God himself. But do your own research, look into this. Don't get informed by the media because they're gonna tell you the wrong stuff when it comes to this Pope, just as they did with Pope Francis. And to close it out, my movie recommendation. Since this was a religious episode, I'm gonna recommend the movie Doubt with Meryl Streep and Philip Seymour Hoffman, the great late Philip Seymour Hoffman. You know, he was my favorite actor. He really was. Like, that guy was an actor. But check out Doubt. Initially, I think it was a stage play that it turned into a movie. And of course, it has to do with molestation because, you know, it's a Catholic movie. That's just what Hollywood does. Everything has to be controversial when it comes to Catholicism in Hollywood because they hate it with a passion. But the movie itself was actually pretty good. And it's going to leave you with a cliffhanger. But if you get a chance, watch Doubt and come back and let me know what your interpretation is in the end of the movie. Do you think he did it or do you think he didn't do it? And for people who've watched it, what do you think? I'm seriously curious. And you can watch Doubt on, let me go look, where can you watch it? You can watch it apparently on MGM's, and you need a subscription service. Of course you do. Or you can watch it on Amazon Prime and you have to pay for it, which is $3.79 as I'm talking about right now for a rental. Or you could download Streamio and figure that out yourself. Regardless, I haven't said this one in a long time. Thanks for watching and one love.